Aloha kako. Our next speaker is someone I am proud to call a friend, and along with his brother Tarek, I believe make up the two smartest people in the state of Hawaii when it comes to knowing and putting into practice the key ingredients of organizing and nurturing successful business startups and engaging in the important act of business planning. Omar Sultan, co-founder of Sultan Ventures and Accelerate UH, is a man of great knowledge and integrity who believes that at the heart of business is the building of prosperity for the benefit of our community as a whole. Today, Omar will engage us in a discussion of what may seem on its face a very deceptively simple idea: scaling your business. We all know the challenges of starting a business, but the challenges of expanding and growing a business are even more daunting. Omar's bio is in your program, where you will have a more detailed description of his accomplishments. Finally, I must confess I have made this introduction effusive to make Omar very, very nervous. He had better perform. You better perform, bruh. I paid for dinner last night. Essentially, I'm setting him up because that's what friends are for. Thus, without further ado, I am very, very pleased today to welcome Omar Sultan.
Wow, what a great introduction. No such thing as a free meal, huh? Okay, so let's see if we get this right. So, hi, I'm Omar Sultan, Sultan Ventures. I'm just going to dive directly into it. So there's three things that we really focus on, right? We're investors, so we definitely invest into new startups, new ideas at the company formation stage, as well as the growth stage. The other thing is we're entrepreneurs. So we founded our own companies. We founded biotech companies. We founded crowdfunding companies, et cetera. So we know what it's like to be in the trenches. We know what it's like to be an entrepreneur and have to go out and sell your soul to investors and constantly be on the road pitching. I'm kidding about the selling your souls. The third thing, and Frank touched upon this a little bit, is the ecosystem building, right? We think it's absolutely critical to invest more than just capital, but also like knowledge and resources and time into building these startups and building the entrepreneurs. So we're very, very, very heavily focused on ecosystem building. So much so that you can see over the last couple of years, we've done over 200 workshops to try to train and educate entrepreneurs. We have over 100 mentors and experts that we bring in from different sectors for different types of businesses, from biotechs to small businesses to lifestyle businesses to high growth businesses, you name it. We're also very active in terms of trying to pass on that knowledge, right, and allowing younger folks to have opportunities to get this type of exposure that they normally wouldn't be able to get. So we've had a lot of interns and fellows in our companies, and then we spend a lot of time with our entrepreneurs, and you can see how many hours there. And it's constantly growing. So as investors, we've invested in lots and lots of companies, right? And from clothing companies to new cancer drugs and literally everything in between. One of our founders is a rocket scientist, right? He wrote the book on space mission operations that NASA uses. Another is, a bikini maker, right? So it really, for us, what we want to invest in is passionate entrepreneurs, right, who are trying to build successful companies that can continuously give back to the community as well as create economic development here in the state. We founded Accelerate UH so that we could focus on the entrepreneurs within the University of Hawaii. We founded it in 2014. In about 3 years, based on the caliber of the teams coming through, as well as our work, we were able to get recognized in Forbes as one of the top 30 accelerators in the nation. That's not too shabby considering where we are in the middle of nowhere here in the Pacific, right? So we're very honored to be able to receive that sort of recognition, and it definitely is a testament to the type of talent and community that resides here in Hawaii. So now I'm going to put on my like ecosystem building hat, right? And I'll switch on and off between investor and ecosystem building. Accelerate Hawaii is one of those ecosystem building activities and initiatives that we have where we train entrepreneurs on best practices to start and grow a business. And I know there's a couple of people here in the audience that have been through some of our workshops. So today's talk, as Frank mentioned, is about smart growth, right, and avoiding common pitfalls. And it's from an investor's perspective, so you kind of get insight into what we look at depending upon the stage that your company is in. So, like a terrible French film, let's jump to the end with what you need to keep track of, and then we'll spend the rest of the time focusing on the how. So, what you can see from this chart is there's absolutely one foundational component to scaling a business, right? And that's product market fit. And if you notice, I said scaling. I didn't say growing your business because from an investor's perspective, there's an absolute distinction between growing and scaling. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Most entrepreneurs use this interchangeably, but again, investors do not. So what is product market fit? Product market fit is having the right value prop for the right customer segment, right? It's having a product for the right market. It's having a product for the right target customer. It's absolutely the foundational of any business, regardless of the sector or type or stage that you're in. It's a constant. So as it relates to growth versus scale, how does product market fit intersect? So the difference is that we like to use this equation, right? So growth is every time I do X, Y happens, right? For every one input, I get one output. And an easy way to think of this is consulting, right? So in order for you to get paid, you actually have to do work, right? It's one for one. If you send an email and you get one sale, it's one for one. If you do a Facebook ad and you get one sale, one for one. That's growth, and that's good, and you should definitely focus on that in the early stages of your business. The difference between scale is for every time I do X, I now get a multiple of Y, right? And that can be 2Y, that can be 2X. I mean, you do 1X, you get 2Y. You do 1X, you get 5Y. Ideally, you get to the stage where you do 1X and you get 10Y. That's really exciting from an investor's perspective, right? Because you just keep getting these multiple returns for every one input that you're putting in. That's scaling. So let's transition now more so into the how, right? So as a small business owner, you're constantly juggling like three main areas. You're juggling the money, you're juggling the tech or the product, your infrastructure, your operations, and you're also juggling your employees, your people, right, your team. These things are constantly getting juggled, and you're probably constantly feeling like you don't have enough of one of these or two of these or maybe all three. It's just a constant cycle, and welcome to entrepreneurship, right? Many successful founders will tell you that they didn't realize that they were successful until they exited, right? So the entire time that they were growing their business, like they had no idea. They thought they were going to be out of business the very next day. So I'm sure almost everyone in here has heard of the Pareto principle in terms of the 80-20, right? So this is the notion that 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. And it gets interesting, and I won't dive too much into this, but you can keep doing that, right? So of those 20% of the customers that are generating 80% of your revenue, you could probably look at 80% of that 20%, and they're generating 80% of the revenue. And then you can start really focusing in on that. But let's just keep it a high level for now. So 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. The flip side is also true. 80% of your headaches are probably coming from 20% of your customers, right? And one of the first things that you should do is cut those 20%, right? It's just a complete waste of your time. That's the truth. Because what your goal is product market fit. You want the right product for the right market, which means the right customer. Those 20% that I'm suggesting that you cut, that's not the right customer. So how do you know as you're growing your business where to spend your time, right? That 80-20%. And so there's this fellow, let's call him Knut, but I'm sure that's not how you pronounce his name, right? He gave this TED talk that was based on this notion of exploration versus exploitation. I'm not a big fan of the word exploitation, but for the sake of this talk, please go with me and think positive thoughts, okay? So when you're starting out your business, what do you think that 80-20 split is, right? Well, the whole idea of starting a company or starting a startup is that, you're searching for a repeatable business model, a repeatable and scalable business model. So naturally, 80% of your time is going to be focused on exploration, right? Trying to find that problem solution fit, trying to find that product market fit. That's where 80% of your time needs to get spent. So what happens once your business is up and running? How do you split that time? Well, you flip it, right? 20% of your time is exploration, 80% of your time is exploitation, right? You're operating your business, you're continuing to do those sales, you're continuing to keep track of your customers, et cetera. What's interesting is if you want to keep growing, the growth happens, the long-term growth happens in that 20%. Now, if you think of companies like Google, they give you 1 day a week to do whatever you want, 20% of your time to do whatever passion project you have. And a lot of the technologies that we have come to know Google for, like Gmail and a lot of Google Docs, all of those came out of somebody's passion project with their 20% of their time. If you think about researchers at the university or new technologies that they're creating, they get 1 day a week to focus, or 20% of their time to focus on whatever they want to. That's the exploration phase, and that's where the long-term growth comes from, so you can't forget about it. So exploration is you're taking the long-term perspective on your company, whereas exploitation is the opposite, right? It's the short-term perspective. So when you look at a business growth over time, it sort of looks like this chart, right? And you can see like there's an area where it's not necessarily growth, it's like up and down, up and down. It's exciting, it's depressing, it's exciting, it's depressing. But once you hit this stage 3, right? Where now you found a problem solution fit. Now where you kind of are starting to touch upon product market fit. That's when it gets interesting. That's when you have to start deciding, okay, where do I want to go with my business here from this point forward? Do I want to continue milking the proverbial cash cow, or do I want to continue to grow this company and perhaps scale it? And there are different ways to do that. You can go out and seek capital. And capital can be in the form of equity from an investor, or it can be in the form of debt. You have to decide what's the right thing for your business. The thing to keep in mind is, if I'm putting my venture capital hat on, this is where I want to get involved, right? Where I can now throw money at you, and then it's like gas on a fire, we get this explosive growth. As a VC, what I want to see is rapid growth. I want to see thousands and thousands of customers getting added like at an accelerated rate, constantly growing. That's the whole goal of a VC, and I won't get into why a venture capitalist wants that, other than the fact of, if they're investing money, they want 5 times their money back in 3 years, or they want 10 times their money back in 5 years. Right? And there's a whole reason why I could go into that, why that sort of general rule is the case. But that's a different talk. So you have to know what type of capital you're seeking. If I put my accelerator hat on, I start getting interested in the stuff that's to the left of that success line, right? We invest in things that are like at an ideation phase. Like maybe there's something there, maybe there isn't. So sure, we'll give a little bit of pre-seed capital to figure that out. As a VC, I have almost, I won't say none, but I have very little interest on the stuff that happens before the line, right? As a VC, again, the goal is the rapid growth. I think I've beaten this horse to death. So, get, keep, and grow, right? So the get and grow customer strategy is pretty straightforward. You have to determine who your audience is, you have to determine what the product is, you have to determine the market. You have to make sure that you're accessing those customers through the right channels. And there are many different channels. You have to create content that people are interested in. And the bottom line is it takes time and commitment and trial and error as a cyclical sort of iterative process to do this. this one seems pretty simple, right? Whenever you want to look up a business, what do? 99% of us Google it, right? Whatever it is, we Google it. But people, especially businesses and entrepreneurs, don't pay enough attention to this. So my strong suggestion, as you'll see in the subsequent slides, is to really focus on this. It is not something to overlook, right? So you might be heads down focused on your product, you might be heads down focused on your customer, but if nobody can find you, then what good is it? So did you know that over 91% of web traffic is from the first page of Google? And you can see the second page, the third page, the fourth page. If you're not on that first page, most people are not going to find you. I mean, how many people actually go to the second page of a Google search result? Very little, which is why you have stuff like this that's all over the web, right? Where's the best place to hide a dead body? The second page of the Google search result. Nobody's going to look there, okay? So spend the time. You're working hard to create a valuable product and a valuable business. Spend the time to actually get it on that first page. And a lot of people are like, okay, so then I have to buy. I'm going to go back for a second. I have to buy ads in order to get on that first page. No, you don't. 90% of the search results on that first page are organic. Only 10% are paid. So you don't have to spend money to get on that first page. And you all should be on that first page, right, regardless of what the business is that you're doing. It's a very, very easy growth strategy right there. So when you're creating a new product, right, there's this book called Hooked. You should definitely read it. Your product needs to be 10 times better than another product for people to want to switch to you. 10 times better, right? So make sure that product market fit, you have the right customer, you have the right product, you have the right market, you've got product market fit, and make sure that you're differentiated, because you have to be 10 times better in order to beat the competition. So that being said, how do you keep customers? And why is it important? Why shouldn't I just focus on getting customers? Well, the flip side is it's 5 to 10 times cheaper to keep a customer than to acquire one, right? So once you figured out your product market fit, once you're on that first page Google search result, and once you have those customers starting to line up for your product, for your service, keeping them is absolutely critical. You cannot overlook that, right? And it's 5 to 10 times cheaper. So one of our colleagues likes to give the analogy of when you start going on dates, right? So this is Kate. So if this is recording, Kate gets to hear this story that I'm sharing with you. So what she says, when you first start going on dates, what do? You go to very expensive restaurants, right? You want to impress the person. But once you're in a relationship, what do? Hey, babe, what do you want to eat for dinner tonight? I'm like, oh, let's just go to McDonald's, right? 5 to 10 times cheaper, yeah, to stay in it. So do not overlook that fact, right? Okay. And there's strategies for keeping customers, right? Very simple. Deliver what you promise. Consistently offer new products, that 20% sort of exploration, right? And then apply retention tactics. And again, retention tactics are very important because it's easier to keep those customers, right, than to acquire new ones. And if you're not focusing on your customers, well then, our good old Sam Walton here has a very powerful quote for you, right? There's only one boss, it's the customer. It can fire your chairman, can get rid of your entire company. So if you don't have your eye on the customer, if you don't have your eye on their experience with your product, with your service, every minute of every day, you're missing the point of actually having a business, period. It's that simple. Here we are again, at the end, right? Scaling versus growth. The absolute foundational of any business, product market fit. It does not matter if you're a tech company, a software company, a new cancer drug. Product market fit is the absolute takeaway. So again, exploration versus exploitation. So you can see short term, what you should be focusing on in terms of the exploitation, Long term, what you should be focusing on in terms of exploration. And you constantly have to have these two in balance. And you can see there's a slight overlap there. If you can operate in that overlap, that's pretty exciting, right? Definitely cool things happen. So, as my last slide, I give you 4 rules for growth and then a bonus, right? So number 1, you can't grow efficiently without product market fit. And the way to get there is through known methodologies like the lean startup methodology, the design thinking, getting to understand your customer, et cetera. Finding out why your customer has the interests that they have, not why they have the position that they have, but why they have those underlying interests, and then start designing products for those underlying interests. So number 2, remember when to explore versus exploit. Constantly track this, constantly measure it, constantly see where you are in terms of your business and what's the appropriate sort of balance between those two. Definitely understand the difference between growth versus scale, because there are different tactics that you should be applying to each one of those stages, right? Number 4, growth happens more efficiently by keeping customers. Remember, expensive restaurant versus McDonald's, right? Or Burger King, whatever fast food that you want. Make sure that you focus on those customers, because they'll come back and that'll be repeat business for you on and on and on. And then the 5th one, the bonus, don't forget, this is entrepreneurship. You're starting a new business. You have to do the dirty work. You have to roll up your sleeves. You have to get in the trenches. You cannot shy away from the work. So be prepared to do the dirty work. Thank you.